I'd just broken up with my ex and was staying at my friend's until I could find my own place. Needing extra money, and fast, I decided to sell some of my old belongings. My friend had just sold some stuff on Craigslist, so she recommended that I try that. Among my listed items was a locket necklace that my ex had gifted me. I received a message from someone named Mark, who said he wanted to purchase the locket for his girlfriend. I noticed his profile was new and he didn't have a picture or any listings. With this in mind, I suggested meeting up at a nearby diner the next morning. He said he could only meet at 5:50 a.m. This seemed way too early, but I figured he must have an early work shift or something. I just wanted the locket sold, so I agreed to meet up and didn't think anything else of it. The next morning I overslept and was running a little late. I texted Mark before I started driving to say I'd be about 10 minutes late and to please wait for me. Feeling bad for being late, I ran in the diner all ready to apologize, but apart from a few lone truck drivers, no one else was in there. I didn't know if he'd already left or not, so I asked the waitress if another guy had been there. She said the only other person she'd seen within the hour was a woman in a green jacket who used the restroom but hadn't ordered anything. I ordered a coffee to go and texted Mark asking him if he was coming or not. He didn't reply, so I figured that he was wasting my time. I took my coffee and left feeling pretty annoyed. As I walked over to my car, my bad mood got even worse when I saw someone in a green jacket trying to open my car door. I shouted over to her, "Excuse me, can I help you?" On turning around, I saw that it was a woman with short hair. She didn't seem startled to see me and continued trying to open the door. I asked her why she was trying to break into my car and told her that if she didn't stop, I'd call the police. She violently shook her head and chanted, "All mine, all mine, all mine." Her behavior made me feel uncomfortable, so I turned to walk back to the diner. That's when she lunged at me, gripped my arm, and pressed a sharp object to my throat. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see the circular finger holes and knew what it was. A pair of deadly sharp scissors. I pleaded with her to let me go as I didn't want any trouble. She let out this sinister laugh. Then she loosened her grip on my wrist and started patting her hand against my pockets. I wanted to react or do something, but I was so frozen with fear I couldn't move. Then she muttered, "Where is it? Where's my locket?" My eyes darted to my neck, so she pulled the locket out from beneath my sweater and swung the scissors towards me. I closed my eyes, and in that moment, I heard a snap. Then she let go of me and ran off. I touched my neck. The locket was gone, and when I looked down at my fingers, I saw red on them. She'd cut me. I was so shaken up I couldn't stand up anymore. The whole thing had been absolutely traumatizing. I managed to go back into the diner and I told the waitress what had happened. She took a look at my neck and found a bandage for my cut. Thankfully, it was only a flesh wound. I reported the incident to the police. They said they were going to open a case and investigate, but I haven't heard anything about it since. I'm just relieved I arranged to meet Mark in a public place and not at my friend's house. Knowing that woman is out there terrifies me, and I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. She has my locket, but what if that's not enough for her, and she comes back looking for something else? My rusty old Buick had finally broken down, so in urgent need of a new ride but short on cash, I checked Craigslist for a possible deal. I found a listing for a 5-year-old used pickup. It had a few minor scratches on the outside and a dented bumper, but for the price, it seemed like a good deal. I texted the seller, a man named Sid Anders, and let him know I was interested in his truck. He replied fairly quickly and seemed friendly. He said he worked at a factory on the outskirts of town and asked if I could meet him there. This was kind of inconvenient, but I was desperate to solve my vehicle situation, so I agreed to meet him there at 6:30 the next day. I got off at the bus stop closest to the factory and then made the 10-minute walk there. The first thing I noticed was how deserted the factory parking lot was. I figured this was because of it being closing time, so I didn't think too much more of it. Among the few vehicles that were there, I couldn't spot the pickup. I even walked around the parking lot to make sure I hadn't missed it, but nope, it definitely wasn't there. I was seething as I'd gone out of my way to come out there, and this jerk couldn't even bother to show up. I started calling the number I had for Sid, but it just rang without answer. I waited around, but I felt awkward just standing there. Giving up, I walked back to the bus stop, furious with myself for believing him. I wasn't far from the bus stop when I heard a vehicle coming toward me. I looked up, and that's when I saw the pickup truck. It was unmistakably the one from the picture. It had the same dent on the bumper. I flagged it down and went to the driver's window. An elderly man was driving it. He was not the same man from his profile picture. He rolled down the window and stared at me without saying a word. I explained how I was there to look at the pickup truck and how I'd left the parking lot since he was late. Again, he didn't say a word and just kept staring at me without saying anything. I asked him if I could look at the pickup truck, but he suddenly rolled the window up with such force it caused me to jump back. I stood there confused as I watched him drive off. That was definitely the same pickup truck. I checked the ad, and the license plates matched. I figured this old guy was just cautious or something, so I texted Sid, presuming that he was the old man's son or nephew, and confirmed that I was currently waiting at the bus stop. He didn't reply, and no way was I walking back to the parking lot again, so I admitted defeat and continued waiting for the bus. Several minutes later, I saw that same pickup truck driving past me. I didn't bother waving him down this time and just gritted my teeth. But then, the man slammed on the brakes, reversed past the bus stop, and just stopped there. His gaze was on me again. He didn't quit looking at me as he started revving the engine. I didn't know what he wanted from me, but this was really creeping me out. Then he flashed me this creepy smile and jerked the truck forward. Panicked, I tried to jump out of the way, but I tripped over my feet and fell over. He sped toward me, and I instinctively covered my head with my arms, ready for impact. But at the last second, he skidded out of the way and drove off, honking the horn as he fled. I was a complete mess after that. The bus arrived shortly afterwards, and the driver had to calm me down. He could tell from my panicked state and the tire marks on the road that I was telling the truth. He insisted I told the police, which I did. They searched the license plate of the pickup, but they told me I must have taken it down wrong. It didn't match any vehicles. I hadn't taken it down wrong. I'd screenshotted the pictures of it from Sid's profile. After that incident, I decided to forget about Craigslist and take my chances at buying a car from the local used car dealership. I don't know who that man was or why he set that whole thing up. All I do know is that whole situation was completely messed up. Even though I'm glad he didn't hit me, I still feel unnerved just thinking about it. I was moving out of my parents' house and into a new apartment. Since the new place was furnished, I decided to sell some of my old stuff that I no longer needed to make some extra money. I advertised my stuff on Craigslist. I sold some of it without any hassle, but my vanity table seemed harder to sell. Then, a few days later, I received a message from a woman named Liana. She offered me the asking price for it and requested an immediate pickup. It sounded too good to be true. I sent her the address and waited around all afternoon for her to show up. She never did, and she didn't respond to my messages. This really irritated me, and I thought, what a waste of time. Since I was moving in a few days, I put my frustration at this aside and concentrated on packing. I decided that the vanity table would just have to stay there for now, and I'd try selling it another time. The next day, I came back from my morning jog and was walking past my room to hit the shower when I heard a rustling coming from within it. Thinking that my brother was snooping in my room, I swung open the door, ready to yell at him. Only it wasn't my brother. In my room, standing next to the vanity table, was a strange woman of about 30. She was rubbing her fingers across the oak surface, and I noted from her reflection in the mirror that she was smiling. I recognized her as Liana from Craigslist and figured my annoying brother had let her in. I joined her by the vanity table and showed her the different compartments. She seemed really obsessed with it and went on about how it reminded her of one she had as a child. She kept on saying that it would do just fine. She repeated it under her breath. "This will do just fine. Just fine. It's just fine." She seemed a bit strange, but she was enamored with the table, so I just went along with it. Carrying it down the stairs was a two-person job, so I started to lift one end of the table. I expected her to take the other, but she just stood there smiling at me. It was clear that she wasn't going to help, so I just told her to wait there and knocked on my brother's door to help me move it. He eventually answered, and it was clear from his groggy voice he'd only just woken up. I called him lazy for going back to bed after he let the Craigslist woman in, and I swear, his eyes widened in confusion. He insisted he hadn't let anyone in the house. I felt sick with dread. I'd left the front door unlocked when I went for my run, so Liana must have let herself in and crept around the house until she found the vanity table. Feeling anxious, I made my brother walk with me over to my room to make this weird woman leave. As we walked across the hall, I heard this strange scratching sound coming from my room. Then suddenly my bedroom door swung open and the woman hurried out of it. My brother started yelling at her to get out of the house, but she didn't seem fazed by this. She just smiled at us and in a croaky voice said, "It's all fine. It's fine." My brother followed her out and locked the door behind her. I went into my room and peered around to see if anything had been taken. Most of my stuff was in boxes and none of them looked like they'd been tampered with. Then I went over to the vanity table and gasped when I saw it. Visible beneath dust and wood shavings were two carved words, "Just fine." I screamed after seeing it, and my brother ran over to help me calm down. The whole ordeal shook me up. Even though I was leaving this house, I worried she'd come back and cause problems for my family, so I reported the incident to the police. She'd used a fake name and profile, so there wasn't much they could do about it. Knowing she's still out there means I can never truly switch off. There's always a nagging worry in the back of my head that she might show up again.